Alright, we are back after a couple of days of letting this concrete cure out. The concrete's looking amazing. It's curing really nicely. I got my main man Edgar here, the turf guy from OC. He's gonna be helping me install the artificial turf today. This should be the end of the day, wrapping everything up. And we just got done taking out the forms, and we're gonna start spreading the base, compacting it, and getting it ready for the artificial turf install. So take a peek. So since we just took out the forms, left a little bit of a gap right here, but we are spreading out the base right now, trying to fill in what we have. We do have extra on this side, just in case. Better to have the extra than not. But you can see the concrete patio came out really clean. It's got a really nice curved transition, and when the artificial turf is in back here, it's gonna look very clean. So once all the base was in, we're gonna start compaction. We have one guy going around all of the edges with a little hand tool compactor, and then I'm going around the whole thing with the big plate compactor, making sure that this base is 100% prepped out for the artificial turf. The other thing we're going to do too is we're measuring out this area because we're going to make the cuts for the artificial turf in the front and then haul it to the back. So right here we already measured the back, so now what we're going to do is measure the artificial turf. Once we figure out where we're going to be cutting the artificial turf, we make a little cut on the side of the turf so we know where the cut will be. Got to make sure your artificial turf is flat when you are measuring out, so you get accurate measurements, of course. So we're kind of holding that down for him so we can get a flat measurement. Once Edgar finds the place where he needs to make the cut, he marks it just like that, cuts the side of the turf, and he's going to do the same thing for the other side. Alright, now that we have our measured cuts out, what we did is we just pull the artificial turf back the other way so we can make the nice easy cut all the way across. Once we pulled the artificial turf back to be able to cut down a straight line, we marked it with a chalk line. I actually didn't get that on footage, but we marked it with a chalk line so that Edgar could get a nice even straight line as he started cutting the artificial turf. Now that it's all cut out, we're just going to fold this up and walk it towards the back. Now these turf rolls can get pretty heavy when they get pretty large, and as you can see, Edgar actually has a bandage around his wrist, so I ended up stepping in here to help carry it to the back for Edgar, and he got on the camera. But now that we have this turf roll to the back, we can start setting it in place, and what we like to do is stretch out the turf perfectly nice and flat before really nailing everything down into place. And then we'll always just cut off the little bit of loose extras around the perimeter, but first we're going to cut off the excess around the concrete side just so we can start really getting this turf 100%. We can actually use the other turf we just cut off as well for the next small portion of the curved area of the turf for the other turf side. And there was only one seam on this job. So you can see right here we're working on tucking the edges. Once we cut that artificial turf and we put a couple nails in the turf to hold it down into place, when we were stretching it, we start to edge. And this is how you edge. Normally you kind of want to get your claw to face towards the concrete as you hit it down to tuck the edge, so it stretches the turf and gives it that nice cleaner flat look. Now here is a close-up of us nailing in the artificial turf. We use 6-inch galvanized nails, and what you do is with one 6-inch galvanized nail is you pull back the artificial turf blades so that when you do hit your nail head down, the nail head doesn't grab any of the turf blades, because if it was to grab the turf blades and you did that for every single one, at the end of the job when you step back and looked up, it would look like a Dalmatian, spots everywhere in your artificial turf, and that's not what you want. So be careful, take your time on putting the nails in. So I actually didn't get to film the seam that we put in for the artificial turf in the backyard on the other project we're on. This is actually another project, but I did kind of want to show you guys the process of how we do our seams. Sometimes we do like a zipper style, sometimes we do an S shape. It all depends, but for the job we were on, we did a zipper style, and for this job I think we did like the same thing. But what you do is you pretty much cut one side of the artificial turf first, like an S or a zipper style, and then with the other turf you butt it up close to it and follow along with it, making sure that there's barely even an 1/8 or a 1/8 inch gap between the two seams. See how they tuck really nice together after the cut? You can't even tell, and it's not even stapled in yet. And that's the next thing I wanted to go over with you guys. The staples that we use are about 6 inches as well, and those putting those in to not catch the turf blades are a little more tricky, take a little bit more time, and you got to put them very close together. I would say no more than an inch apart. But that's how we install our seams. Now, the last step of installing your artificial turf is putting in your sand. And now this is industrial grade sand, number 16. So it's not so fine, more coarse. And this stuff really holds the artificial turf blades up. What you want to do before you put in your industrial grade sand is you actually want to broom all of your turf blades to stick standing straight up. You don't want them laying flat when you put this stuff in. I actually missed the film on that as well, but we did do that before we started putting this in. Now the reason why he's scooping out with his hand is because that is the bristle brush broom that we use to broom all of the turf blades up. But the reason why he's using his hands to throw in all the sand is because we had 100-pound bags, so they're quite heavy. Usually we get 60 pounds, but the place I get it from was all out of the 60 pounds, so we lightened up the bag by throwing it by hand. Normally as well, you want about 1 pound of this per square foot. But it also depends on your ounces of grass, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Once we have all of our industrial sand down, what we do now is get a leaf blower, our bristle brush broom, and just spread out the sand nice and evenly across the artificial turf, making sure it's all settled at the bottom, holding up all the artificial turf blades. Alright, the turf is installed, everything is looking great. We're just doing the final touches, cleaning off the cement, watering down the turf, really saturating it, making sure all the sand gets really locked in. Check it out. Project is looking beautiful.
¿El galón de gasolina es tuyo? Ah, sí, es mío.
So that about wraps up this series, guys. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, comment any questions you may have on this artificial turf project. Also, if you haven't seen part 1 or 2, make sure to check those out because it does show the demo and setup, the concrete pour out, And of course, this is the final part to the series. So, hope you enjoyed everything. Don't forget to leave a like for me. I would truly appreciate that. And stay tuned for more projects coming up, because we have a bunch more in the books ready to be filmed, edited, and put up on YouTube.